about the research you did. You said you interviewed a lot of experts in the field.
Yeah.
What did they have to say when it came to the theories of these, for lack of a better term, racist claims?
Okay, so in terms of science, firstly, the race is at most a kind of convenient shorthand description, but really it has no scientific basis. The genetic variance within the so-called races is often much greater than that between them. So within Africa, you have much more genetic variation than you do, say, between European and Indian populations, say in Eurasia, and it's because only relatively small groups migrated to Asia and then Europe. So there was much more genetic variation in Africa. So the idea of race then is fallacious in a scientific sense. It's all it's describing are very superficial characteristics, skin color, hair type, things like that. But that's not profound in terms of your whole genome. So that's the first point that scientists will make. So then one looks at different population groups, and that's a term that scientists use more often rather than races. So you look at different population groups, and indeed there is some variation between them. So for example, people who live in malaria zones, there are more people who have sickle cell anemia there. And the result of that is because if you have one allele of a particular gene, then that protects you against malaria. So Pesachs in the Jewish community, lactose tolerance, we evolved for that, skin color. So those, in that sense, there has been continued evolution of humanity. But all of those are single gene mutations, whereas intelligence involves a network of thousands of genes. So you're not comparing like to like, because one of the racist arguments is that, look, people have evolved for skin color, people have evolved for sickle cell anemia, therefore, what's to say they're not evolving for intelligence? And the answer to that is that you're not, it's trying to compare apples and oranges, or fish and bicycles. Yeah.
Now, as we see in the book, the racist study keeps popping up in different forms year after year, and you speak about the bell curve. Now, this was published in 1994. Can you talk us through what exactly the bell curve set out to prove?
Okay, the bell curve was, as you say, a book. It came out in America in 1994 with huge publicity, and what it was arguing, the two authors were arguing, was that the reason people were poor was because they were stupid, basically. They had low IQ. So it wasn't the other. Most people say that the reason people in poorer areas have lower IQs relates to poverty. But they were saying, no, it's the low IQs were causing the poverty. And the corollary of that, they said, was the reason in America why there were more poor black people was because they said that black people are innately less intelligent than white people. So that was the core argument. Look, it was a long book. There were lots of other stuff in it, but that's the kind of core argument of the racist section of the book. And in common with a lot of this kind of people who hold this kind of view, they believe that IQ is something that is biological, so that how you score on an IQ test is a reflection of your innate intelligence. So, I mean, the arguments against that are, if we take separated identical twins who've grown up in different class backgrounds, their IQs sometimes vary by as much as 30 points. So it's clearly there's a very strong environmental element to it. And what we also know is that each generation, average IQ scores get higher. So in order to keep a mean of 100, it's supposed to be the average, they have to make the IQ test more and more difficult. Now, people are not genetically changing, but what is changing is their exposure to abstract logic. So at the moment, like kids, for example, who play like Tetris or Grand Theft Auto or whatever, they're dealing with abstraction and with concepts in a way that will help them in IQ tests, and that has been demonstrated. So the reason why different population groups might have different average IQs has nothing to do with genetics. What it has to do with is the kind of exposure, particularly in early childhood, that they've had to abstraction.